to talk about positive and negative exponents today. It's for pre-algebra or algebra. Now, I know that some of you may not even know that negative exponents exist, but you know they do. And we're going to learn what they mean today. All right. I'm going to put some things up here that look very similar. Now, this is just basic exponents. If we have a positive exponent, we just write it as a number. We don't write the positive sign because that's a positive number. But if we have a negative sign, we write it. Okay? So this is -4 in parentheses squared. And this is -4 with no parentheses to the -2. Now they look very much the same. However, this one is -4 times -4 because this exponent is on the whole set of parentheses, and -4 times -4 is positive 16. Since this is in the parentheses, the exponent is on the negative sign, and a negative number squared is positive. Now this negative sign is not in parentheses. So that square only goes on the 4, not the negative sign, but there's a negative exponent. Now, what the negative exponent does is shift the 4 squared, the -4 squared, to the denominator. It's currently in the numerator because this could be 4/1, but that negative sign is going to shift it down and it will be 1/-4 squared. So the difference here, the negative sign on the exponent is gone, but the -4 is moved into the denominator. All the negative sign on the exponent does is shift it from the numerator to the denominator, or the denominator to the numerator. So what is -4 squared? Well, that negative sign is not squared, only the 4, so it's 16. -16. This is regular 16. This is 1/16, -1/16. So that's just a brief glimpse at what the negative exponents do. Okay. Now, going to do a couple of more. Okay, they look a lot alike, but they're all different. So there's that -2, all it's going to do is bring the -4 squared to the top, to the numerator, because I can put a 1 down here to make it look like a fraction. So all it does is shift it to the top. And that -4, the 4 squared is 16, and the negative sign stays. This is just a 4 squared. There's no negative sign anywhere. So that is 1/+16. Okay? This one looks a lot like that one, except for the negative sign. But it's quite a bit different when you get to the answer. Now this one looks a lot like this one. It has a negative sign, a 4, a negative sign, and a 2, but it has parentheses. And remember, when you have parentheses, the negative sign is part of the exponent. And -4 times -4 is 16. But this negative sign brings it to the top. So that one is 16. It doesn't stay in the denominator. The negative sign brings it to the numerator. So 3 different problems looking similar, 3 different answers. So there are a lot of things details that you have to look for in these problems. Now we're not going to do anything terribly complicated today. I we'll say that it's good for you to learn some of these, you know, the squares, but some of the cubes and various things. So let's see, I'm going to put some numbers down here. 3 to the negative 3. Okay? Negative 3 to the 3. And negative 3 to the negative 3. Okay, they're different. This is positive 3 to the negative 3. Remember that negative sign on the exponent has nothing to do with the sign on the number. This answer is going to be positive. And 3 to the third is 27. But that 27 is in the denominator because that negative sign pushes it down. What the negative sign does is move it from the numerator to the denominator. So this becomes 1 over 3 to the third, which is 1/27. Okay, it's not negative 1/27, it's positive. Now this one doesn't have a negative sign there, so it's not going to get moved to the denominator. There's no negative sign on the exponent. The negative sign is in parentheses, so it's negative 3 times negative 3, which is positive 9, no, 27, positive 27. And it's not 1/27, it's 27. It stays in the numerator because there's no negative sign to move it down. Okay, this time we have the negative 3 to the third power. And I did this one wrong. I'm going to go back and correct my mistake because it's to the third power and I just squared it. It's negative 3, negative 3, negative 3. But the negative sign is also in parentheses. So 3 negatives, an odd number of negatives, make this one negative 27. Okay? There's only one negative sign in this, but it's on the exponent, so it stays positive, and the answer goes to the denominator. This one is here, and since that's an odd exponent, it's negative 27. Okay, this is negative 3 to the third, negative 3 to the third power. But it's 1 over negative 3 to the third power. And we already did negative 3 to the third power. It's negative 27. This one has a negative sign on the exponent. This one does not. This one becomes 27. This one becomes 1 over negative 27. Negative 27, 1 over negative 27. Okay? So the sign on the exponent can make a great deal of difference in the answer to a problem. You can have some very complicated problems with these positive and negative exponents. And you have to think. As you do them step by step, you have to think. I have been doing this video over because I get to one point and suddenly get a problem wrong. So I'm trying not to do that this time. I did, but I fixed it. Okay. Now, I'm going to put some answers down here. 64, negative 64, 1/64, and negative 1 over 64. Okay? 4 answers. 4 different answers. I'm going to put up 4 problems. They're all different. Let's see if we get a different answer to each one. Negative 4 to the third power. 8 squared. 1 over negative 8 in parentheses squared. And 1 over negative 4 to the negative 3. Okay. 4 4 different problems, 4 different answers. Let's match them up, shall we? So this is a negative sign in parentheses to the 3rd power. That means the answer is going to be negative. So it has to be either this one or this one. But it's to the positive 3rd power, and 4 to the 3rd power is 64. So there, it's that one. The negative sign is there because it's to an odd number. A negative sign raised to an odd number is still negative. This is 8 squared. You've known what 8 squared is for a while. 8 squared is 64. And there it is right there. So we've got 2 problems, 2 answers. Let's try this one. There's no negative sign there. No negative sign on the exponent. That means it's going to be 1 over something. And negative 8 in parentheses, negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. So that means that this one goes to this one. Now let's see. Let's see if this one is going to match this or if it's going to match one of the others. This is, this may be a ringer down here. What does that negative sign on the exponent do? Brings it to the numerator. Okay, so this is not going to be right because that negative sign is going to bring it to the numerator. It's got to be one of these 2. What is negative 4 to the 3rd power? Well, we know that it's negative 64 because we did that. This is not in parentheses, but that negative sign is still going to stay. So the answer to this one is negative 64. This is negative 64. This is negative 64. That negative sign in the exponent brings it to the numerator because it's currently in the denominator. A negative sign in the numerator brings it to the denominator. Okay? That's one little review here at the end with basic stuff. 3 basic things. Four squared is just 16. That's the normal problem that we've been doing ever since you learned how to multiply. 4 to the negative 2 is still 4 squared, but it's shifting it to the denominator. So the negative 2 makes this 1/16. Negative 4 in parentheses to the negative 2 is positive 16. And the negative sign, negative 4 squared, in parentheses, negative 4 squared, becomes positive 16, and this negative sign takes it to the denominator. So these 2 problems have the same answer. What about negative 4 to the negative 3? Well, the negative sign stays on the problem. Oops. And that negative sign takes it down. There's the negative sign. 4 times to the 3rd power is 64. That negative sign is not part of the parentheses, but it's still negative. It's still negative. You still have the negative sign. This negative sign stays. These 2, this has nothing to do with the sign of the number. Let me erase this and just write one more thing. So you can see, negative 4 to the negative 2. It looks a lot like this one, except it has parentheses. Okay? The negative 2 brings it down to the denominator. We know it's going to be on the denominator. That negative sign stays. It's really on the fraction, but you can write it up here, or as long as it's just got one negative sign, it'll be fine. And 4 squared is 16. So this looks a lot like that, but the sign is different. This is a basic view of positive and negative exponents. It takes some practice to get used to, but you'll get it.